renewables-based system. You just heard we're recording this meeting. And the reason we're doing this is that we want to make it available to anyone who wants to re-listen to what they've heard today, or who want to share the link to this webinar to anyone who wasn't able to make it today. So it will be available on our website later on. Today we're talking about SoLAR Allensbach, which is an incredibly interesting project that will be presented by our speaker, Stefan Werner, who you see already in probably the video below me. And the agenda for today, which, one second, that was one slide too far. So this is what we've planned today. Right now we're in the welcome and introduction part done by me. I'm Stefan Werner. I'm a communication manager at the Renewables Grid Initiative. And then we'll have a presentation going in depth into SoLAR Allensbach, what it is all about and what makes it so special, which will be given by Stefan Werner, who's the project coordinator of said project. And afterwards, you will have the chance to ask all the questions that you have about the project, about how it has been realized, how it technically works, anything you want to know about how it could be transferred to a different context maybe, or anything else. So start preparing your questions during the presentations already. And yeah, as said, you will have ample time to ask anything that you'll want to know. How will that work? So we are recording, you already know. For us to know who you are specifically when you ask your questions, it would be great if you could rename yourself if you haven't already done so that your Zoom name shows your first name, your last name, and the organization that you represent, so that we know who we are talking to. And for the duration of this meeting, unless you're talking yourself, we're asking you to mute yourself, please. We're asking you to use your video because we would like to see who we're interacting with. So please, if you feel comfortable, keep your video on. If you ask a question, be as succinct as you can be. And to actually show us that you want to ask a question, please use the function on the bottom that says raise your hand. Or you can also write a question in the chat, but we actually would prefer to talk to you one-on-one. So if you do write a question in the chat, I might call on you and ask you whether you not want to talk to us directly. But we'll see how that works technically as well. Yeah, but a general preference to talk to you face-to-face. Good. Before I give the word to Stefan, just a few quick words on what this webinar is and who RGI, the organization behind this webinar, is. So we are I would say, fairly unique collaboration of TSOs and NGOs from across Europe. We're the only type of organization that brings these two actors together. And we work together to promote fair and transparent and sustainable grid development to achieve the type of energy transformation that we're all working towards in Europe. And here you can see where our different members come from. So we represent a fair bit of European countries, not all of them yet, but we're constantly growing and hope that most of this map is dark green very soon. And a big part of what we're doing and working together is the sharing of best practices. We do this via many different channels. It's not just this webinar, which is one of the pillars of our best practice sharing, but it's also the good practice. Oh, can you still see my screen? Because for me, it has gone
looks a bit peculiar.
Completely jumbled up. Okay, now it should be back. Good. We also have the Good Practice of the Year award. We have a good practice database that you can find on our website. We share them via our newsletter, where we have a good practice corner, and where we also announce good practice sharing events such as this one. You can see in the top right corner where you can sign up for that newsletter. Yeah, and then of course, we have the good practice sharing webinars, such as this one today. And we hope that you've come for today with many questions, and that we'll have a lively discussion. As I said, please start preparing your questions during the presentation already. And I think we should move to that directly now. And to begin, let me introduce our speaker for today. It's Stefan Werner. He's the solution manager at Easy Smart Grid. And he's also the spokesperson of the Allensbach Climate Initiative Local Agenda 21. And both of these hats he wears together as the project coordinator behind SoLAR Allensbach, which he does on behalf of the ISC Konstanz. He's going to introduce, I think, in his presentation, what these different organizations are. But Stefan, let me say, we're very happy to have you. We're very thankful that you're presenting your interesting project to us. And I think this is actually more than enough from me. And I would give the word to you now and would like to ask you to share your screen, and welcome to the webinar.
Okay, thanks a lot, Stephanie. So I am, of course, very pleased to have the possibility to talk about our project here today. Let's see, I need to get to the presentation button. Now I can start it. Hope you can see the presentation now. So thanks a lot. We are really happy that RGI asked us if we could make a contribution to the award. So I didn't know about that before, and so we did, and then we won it. So that was really a surprise, and of course a gift not only to me but to all of the partners that work in the project in Allensbach. Yes, and as Stephanie says, I have 3 hats. So I'm at Easy Smart Grid, but the idea of the project came from local agendas, so from engaged citizens in Allensbach. And as a coordinator of the project, I work for the ISC Konstanz, who is the main partner of the project that is founded by the Ministry of Environment and Energy in Baden-Württemberg. Now, I also just saw that Jonathan Wochner from the ministry is also with us, so thank you for joining. This is a little slide about Allensbach. What I'd like to say is that it's not only a citizens initiative that we have here in Allensbach, but it's also a strong engagement and commitment of the community itself. So already in 2010, we won an award of the Baden-Württemberg that we wanted to be a climate neutral community. We are still not. But we are on the way, and in last September, the Community Council decided on a climate action plan that indeed from 2020, within 10 years, we want to reduce our carbon footprint by 75%. And this will be mainly done with renewables like wind from outside. We can't do it there, and from local PV. And we have some means of combined heat and power plants, heat pumps, and electric vehicles will be very important there to do that. And the project I'm talking about is helping Allensbach to solve this task. And the main problem that we see in the energy transition, that maybe you can see in the charts from Agora Energiewende, is the storage challenge, so to say. You can see the figures from 2021, where we have this gray block of fossil energies that we still need to fill the gaps between the demand and the generation of the renewables. And if you just extend this generation here, the renewable generation, to a size that it will have at 2040, as Agora did, you can see that if there are no fossils anymore, that even the increased electric need, which can have some flexibility with the methods of today, and the generation does not fit at all, and we have to solve that. And here on the right hand side you can see these little blue spots. This is what we are doing with pumping water hydrogen storages in Germany today, and you can see this is just 8 terawatt-hours of energy that can be stored there. That's almost neglectable, and if we compare that to batteries, it's even 2,000 times more than batteries at the moment. So you can see what kind of challenge we are facing. The good news is that wind and sun complement over the year, so that the main storage problem that we have is within the days or hours. And we, with a SoLAR project, wanted to contribute on the solution of this problem or the challenge. And this is not mainly what we're heading about. We say, okay, we need storages, but we want to keep the level of battery and hydrogen storage as low as possible by using electric devices that are there anyway, using them as virtual batteries by changing their time of operation according to their flexibility that they have. They all have some kind of storages by temperature or pressure or time when they are used. And here on this slide you can see what is possible. So this is the typical flexible assets in a household in Europe, and this is how they could be shifted if we had a way to do that. And when we opened the project and looked for partners, we found Easy Smart Grid. I was not engaged in the company then, but I found that the solution of Easy Smart Grid is really what we could need to solve our problem, because the technology which is used in solar makes it really possible to use all the flexibilities that there are. And I'd like to show in these slides how we do that. And of course, we do not only have electric devices typically, but in the future energy system, heat and mobility will play an important role. Even today, the energy consumed in the sectors is much higher than electricity. And so in the future, they will play an important role. And of course, they are also very important virtual batteries. A heat pump uses electricity and can change the time when it operates with a buffer storage. And the same can do a CHP or a fuel cell in smaller houses, and also electric vehicles. 90% of the time they park, and if they are connected to an electric plug, then we could easily shift the time to charge them according to the need or according to the availability of renewable generation. So, and what we also can say is in larger quarters or larger even buildings, it would be very favorite to even combine heat pumps and CHP units, because then you can have a storage and energy by the heat buffer, and you can choose whether you want to produce electricity or you want to use electricity. This is a very large flexibility asset that we have here, that we propose to do in all the large buildings, and so that we also can use the CHP as the better gas plants for generation, because they have a high efficiency and work directly in the low voltage grid. And of course, looking at electric devices in SoLAR and in Allensbach, we just look at living quarters. But of course, industrial flexibility is very important, and there's a huge question how can we activate this, because the processes in industry are the main thing the owners look at, and if somebody wants to control something there, it's not easy to harvest that flexibilities that are there. In the future energy system, we will save a lot of energy by the efficiency of heat pumps, for example, or even electric vehicles compared to to the techniques that we have today. But of course, the number of electricity or the amount of electricity we use will be much larger. There are estimations that it will be 2.5 times or 2 to 3 times as much as today. But what we can say with the technology that really can shift every accessible flexibility, 80% of this electric consumption we have there, all these are must runs, can be shifted over hours or even days when they do it. So this is a very, very large virtual battery we have here. And in this living quarter in Allensbach that just has been built, this is a picture from March last year. Now it's finished, the people live in there, and we start to, all the devices are running, and now we start to step by step put them into the energy management. Here we want to show how that works. The main partners supported by the ministry are the ISC Constance I mentioned before. They are doing the technical things, the installations, and the hardware and software programming. And we have IFA, the European Institute for Energy Research in Karlsruhe, who are doing all the simulations that we use there. And we can say that everything we do here in reality, we have done before within a simulation surrounding that works within seconds. Is very precise and very realistic. And thanks, of course, to the company that built these buildings and a lot of other partners, where I'd like to mention maybe 3. Naturenergie, Energiedienst is a utility from south of Germany. They're doing the contracting there, and really looking forward to the technology, how it works. And then we have Stadtwerk Haßfurt. It's a town utility in the north of Bavaria, and they want to take our technology that has shown now that proof now that it works, and let it operate in a whole DSO cell. So in a grid of a DSO with 15,000 grid terminals, and this will be the next stage of the use of our technology. And want to mention is BSH. This is Bosch Siemens Hausgeräte. They are really interested in the possibilities to flexibilize household appliances here, and they gave for every household that was interested, at the end it were 18, they gave a fridge freezer unit for free. And I asked the households then, okay, if you have that for free, please buy a dishwasher or a washing machine that can be controlled too. So we also can really show how also household appliances can be introduced or can be used for flexibility for making up virtual batteries. Here on the left side, you see the living quarter in a section. They are on a garage, basement garage, where all the cars are there. And then for us, it's quite easy to make a system for charging there. We will have around 13 cars that in reality that we can charge now in a month or something. They're installed. And we have 12 semi-detached houses here. They are marked yellow. And each of that house has 1 heat pump. So 12 heat pump working totally independent from each other, and they base on groundwater energy. And then here with these 2 buildings that were built new, they are multi-flat buildings. We agreed with the owner of the site that we built in a CHP there. Originally, also a heat pump should be in here, but we could convince him to do that, and also convince some neighbors in an existing building, so that all these 3 buildings are supplied with heat over the CHP, to show how heat pumps and CHPs can coordinate over the grid, over the electric grid. These are the household appliances that we will use here. So you see fridge freezers, dishwashers, washing machines, and dryers. And some of the houses, they also have batteries. 7 of those houses have batteries. We do not control them. They just take out electricity from the solar roofs they have. They are privately owned, and our system does the rest. And the business model is tenant power. So the whole living quarter has a private grid. a customer plant, so to say. And here at the connection, we make a measurement of the residual power that we have there. And this is what we are using to coordinate all these assets. And I will show how that works. And this basically is the technology that we use, a measurement or multi-measurements in the grid to coordinate assets. But what we do is making a market out of that. So that will lead in the research of solar to real-time tariff, where we don't need this private grid anymore and the tenant power, but we really could make a dynamic price or a dynamic grid fee, whatever is liked. We didn't detail that here. This is up to next projects and discussion. But this can be done with the technology. So basically how the Easy Smart Grid technology works is we make a price signal. So we make a market out of a grid state. That is the basic idea. And this price signal that we are doing here is really done in real time. So we're trying to do it every second. We are measuring the grid, and we measure if we have a tendency of shortage or a surplus of energy. We could do that with the frequency or voltage, current. In solar, as I said, we use the power balance of the living quarter. So if the power balance is zero, if we don't export energy and we don't import something, then also this balance indicator is zero. And if we have a surplus, so we are feeding into the grid, then the balance indicator gets up to 1 + 1. This is the highest feed-in that is allowed. And if we take electricity from the grid, it gets down to -1, and this is up to until the highest allowed use of the grid. So if you want later to make a price out of that, you could, for example, have a kind of basic price, and you could subtract the balance indicator multiplied with a price spread, called a flexibility bonus. And then the real price, the tariff you could make later, would be the mirroring of this balance indicator. So this is a signal that represents the grid, which also can be directly turned into a price. So that is the reason why we call it price signal. And the idea now is to send this price signal from the smart meter, we call it smart meter 2.0, to electric devices or to their controls. In this case, this is a heat pump from company Vida. This is the heat pump manufacturer that is used in solar. And at the moment, we are controlling from an outside, from EMS system, but later, or we are now working on integrating the algorithm that reacts on the price directly into the heat pump. So we don't need a central energy management system. So it's decentral, as said here. And we just need the price signal and the individual reaction of each asset. And the smart meter can use some measurements, frequency, voltage, to make a BI, or gets data from external. In our case, in solar, of course, we have to measure the power at the central terminal, and we forward this to the devices that make up the BI, and then the assets are reacting. And of course, the heat pump tries to get the energy as cheap as possible. It just sees the balance indicator, but it knows when it's the highest, then the price is the lowest, not knowing what the price is exactly at solar, because we just use it to improve the self-consumption rate. But that's what the flexibilities do. They try to get the best prices possible. And this market has the result that this curve is flattened, that everybody tries to get the best price. And so the whole system is self-dynamic and self-balancing. And as we just forward a price signal, we don't have any data security problems. And our target is, together with the DSOs and TSOs and other stakeholders, to define a standardized price signal and use cases for that. And of course, the system can be integrated in existing markets. At the moment, as I said, we use it for tenant power, but we can also do other things, and until also the whole European market could be done with that, but step by step. So to see what happens if we do it this way, we have a little example for the summer here. You can see these are 2 days in July where the sun is shining and there are some clouds. So this is why there is a decay in the solar power. This is the sum of all the 14 power plants that we have there. And here you can see that the CHP unit has been switched on because the buffer tank was empty, the temperature was down, so it's charged for 5 hours. And then in summer, as the heat is just used for warm water, it takes around 3 days or something, or 4 days until it starts again, because the buffer is quite large. 3,000 liters is what we have here. And you can see these 12 lines. These are the semi-detached houses with the heat pumps. And here the same, whenever the buffer for hot water, it has 300 liters in this case, is empty. Then the heat pump switches on and switches off if the buffer is full. So this is the normal heat lead operation. And what you can see here is the sum of the power consumption of the heat pumps. So they just switch on and off, they don't modulate. And this is the result. And if we look at the grid terminal of the whole living quarter, then we can measure the power there. And this is already the balance indicator that we calculate. So you can see when the sun is shining, we have a lot of power, and it even goes over the limit that we have set here. And at nights, we need something from the grid. Here, when the CHP is operating, and if it's not controlled, it also does some feed into the grid. And with the system now, we are just forwarding this balance indicator here to the devices, and you can see what they are doing. They just need about 3 days or something to fully adapt. They are also working at the first day, but they get better and better. And the CHP finds out that the optimum operation timing is that it doesn't go for the full power, but just half power and not the full time, so that it can work every day when the draw of electricity from grid is the highest, and that would, in our system, would make up the highest prices that the CHP could reach at the market. Vice versa for the heat pumps. They gather around the sun, so to say, so they learn at which price level it's optimum to switch on. And it depends what kind of consumption behavior they have. For example, here probably the people have do a lot of showering or something in the morning, take showers, so they have to start earlier, and they take this first BI peak here, where the price the first time gets lower than normal. Here they start, and then more and more with the sun, the others come. And as our price signal is changing every second, also the control energy is integrated here, because if a cloud comes, the balance indicator drops, and if the heat pumps have run long enough, so we look at all the technical limits that they have, then they just switch off and switch on again if the prices are good. So in the algorithm, we see that the switching cycles are not too much, and the minimum time limits are kept and things like that. But the result looks as if there was some optimizing there and made really the optimum result. But this is really only the decision of each individual asset, just reacting on that price. And in full beauty, so to say, you can see that in spring, here's we can show what happens if not only the heating devices operate, but all the devices that we have there. And so in spring, more or less, generation and consumption is balanced. It's, by the way, that is kept in winter, because the CHP, of course, has to do a lot of running for the old house. And so here again, we have the sun, we have the CHP. Now it's running longer, of course, and it's running in the evenings. It runs in the mornings together with the sun, because there's a lot of heat need after the cold nights. And it's starting to modulate. That's possible here to keep the balance, to keep the price, so to say. Here are the heat pumps again, and now because there's heat needed, they just not only work when there's sun, but they need to operate longer, and so they tend also to go in the mornings when after cold nights, or when there's when the CHP runs here, they can start and take that power. And this line is about the household appliances. We have dishwashers, washing machine, and tumble dryers. So typically in the morning, you can start your dishwasher or your washing machine and say, okay, after work, I come back, and then you should be finished. And the algorithm is looking for good prices to start that devices. And on Friday and Saturday, most of the people here use the lines, and on Sunday and in the evening, most of them use tumble dryers. And of course, you just have this time area in the evening here where you could do that, so they can't go in the sun. But you can see, for example, that these two tumble dryer runs, so they try to get near to the sun, or here in this case, the CHP is helping with that. And then we have electric cars. And of course, they often have to charge overnight because they want to leave the next day. But if you make an intelligent way of charging, saying, oh, I don't have to fill up my battery every day, but I can wait for some sun. And then if the cars come back at the weekend and are in the garage, they can take the sun again. And so this is a peak here for the charging of the cars. And yeah, that's the result at the end. So the blue line here is the generation of electricity from as the sum of sun and CHP, and the orange line is the consumption. And you can see just with this market effect, generation and consumption is strongly balancing. Whenever the CHP is running, it's quite near to zero, a bit below, because they want to have a good price, but they manage that. Here the CHP is off, so the fluctuation is a bit larger because flexibility is missing. Here it gets better. And you can see in the evening, this is the normal need. But what can be done is done without any central optimization, just with the market service. And as I said, we want to increase the self-sufficiency, and in the simulation, we reached up from 50 to 80%, and we are quite sure that will be similar in the real world. And we also made a calculation about the cost of electricity, because because of grid fees that we don't have to pay, and some taxes. The electricity consumed within the grid is much cheaper, and overall, with all the total consumption, every kilowatt hour, we save about 5 cents with the system. Of course, at the moment, the cost is quite high because we have a lot of scientific research around that, but the target system cost is lower than 1 cent. And so you can see there's the electricity will be much cheaper in the future, and something similar to that also applies on higher grid levels. And as I said, the fridges and freezers also operate there. You can't really see the effect on the tenant power, because they just can move or shift their energy some half hour, or maybe sometimes 2 hours or something. But what they really can do is control energy. Of course, we don't need that for tenant power, but later that would be very interesting. And what you can see here is we made a little model apart from the living quarter, where we said, okay, let this be a control area where we have these 46 devices, and we have a generation unit here that makes 1,500 watt all the time. And with this balance indicator reacting on the power deviation that we have there from generation and what is consumed, we really reach that all the fridges switching on and off really follow this 1,500 watt directly. And if we split them between freezers and fridges, you can really see that there are a lot of individual differences between the devices. But if you put these two curves together, they exactly fit to the demand. So there's no disturbance. And now we simulated control power by using the disturbance or the activated control power in Germany for automatic frequency response in 2019. So this is what was activated, and we imagine this was an error, giving it to the generator here. For some, it has a hiccup. And what you can see is, with the balance indicator reacting on that the power profile of the freezers and fridges is really following the disturbance, so that it's more or less erased, so to say. And if we have a negative disturbance all the time in the same direction, sometimes the fridges get too hot and they have to react. Then also this price gets higher here. Then we don't have the full energy. But BSH said that we have 2.5 gigawatt control power with fridges and freezers, which is all we need for control power, and we could do 75% of the energy. Not here, but here and here. The fridges can really fix any deviation. And so the next step we want to do, as I said, we could show within a living quarter that everything works. We have a kind of local green tariff there. We have new kind of heating, electric mobility, and made up a smart grid. And now we want to bring that into a larger scale. And we are just starting the preparation and asking for support for Project Sunrise that will work in a whole cell of a DSO. We would do that in Allensbach, but maybe we'll also find some town utilities that want to join us. And looking what we have done there in the scaling is looking at SoLAR. What we have there is this local private grid where we have a balance indicator there. By the way, to mention, what we also have is a balance indicator on the private houses, because they want to also maximize their consumption of their own PV. And these two signals can be merged. So to say, we can calculate them in a way that the house makes its own self-consumption a maximum, but also helps to increase the self-consumption of the local grid. And now with the next step, we want to go into the regional grid. So as this was in low voltage, we will go into the medium voltage. And we could also make a measurement there. And now the player is now the private grid owner or the contractor or utility, but it's a DSO that can make with just 1 or 3 measurements the balance of the grid cell and control the devices in there. And a little change is here. Before we had a balance indicator at the local grid. Now we make a congestion indicator. I don't have time to explain that in detail, but that means if there is no congestion, there is no price here. So we could use that to help preventing high or low voltage or to prevent overload of transformers. But if there's no congestion, there is no price signal here, and everybody is reacting just on this one. And what we can do with this balance indicator is that the cell load profile of the DSO, which is normally it's a standard load profile, but it will change in the future. Definitely, everybody knows that because of the behavior of the PV plants and so on. With this signal, the DSO can shape it, so to say. The DSO can schedule it for the next day, and the deviation from the schedule can be priced so that all the devices or prosumers within the cell can help to reach the goal. And this is helping local energy communities to operate without having to make deals everybody with each other, very complicated, but just using this general price signal. And it could be multiple communities that work in here. So all the utilities with their balances groups that are here could join the game. And not only keeping the electricity within the cell is one goal, but the DSO could also manage its balance group with that, so that it's really according to the requests, to the schedule. And if that is possible, then also the cell could be pre-qualified to do control power in a certain way or a certain amount and do redispatch with all that flexibilities without knowing exactly which asset has been activated, just by using the whole cell as one black box. But you could pre-qualify that black box to react. This is something we are looking at the next stage, how the system could be integrated into the existing energy market. And of course, still also this private grids, living quarters, new build are a possibility of business case that could be applied. Looking forward, Stephanie asked me, okay, what would be the next step, or where are you heading for at the end? What could be done is that, as this is just a sub-market, if we think this further, we could make the control zone a cell, and we could make the continental grid a cell. So everything is a cell and has its price. And at the end, for balancing Europe, so to say, the most important figure is really the frequency that balances everything. And with the coupling of the cells, what we have to do there is just pricing the congestions if they happen. But in the best case, when there are no congestions, we really could use the frequency to control all the devices, and this can be directly measured within the devices. So even if a communication breaks down, the system could help to prevent any blackout, because the frequency could always be part of the price signal and support the whole grid. And looking at the green marked price signals, these are signals that can be measured locally, the power of the own house, or the voltage, or even the transformer congestion could be the short communication line could be go down there. You could even say regional grid is quite local, let's see. But it's possible that even with disturbances or cyber attacks on the communication levels, still the system is working, because the cells can support each other or balance each other alone, at least for a while, until the connection is re-established. Yeah, that's it. And so what we are doing is taking the energy system as we have it, where the source follows the demand, and we have a lot of central control still in the old plants. It's to make the energy transition so that the demand follows the source, which is the sun and the wind in the future, where the wind comes also from the sun, and where we use swarm intelligence to control the things, and not trying to make it centrally. But because of that many flexibilities that we have, it's not possible to control them centrally anymore. And we think we have solved, at least in concept, the main pain points of energy transition, and we would really like to get in contact with you, discuss this further, and find out how we could apply that in the grid. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stefan. An incredibly interesting presentation I found, and specifically for someone like me who's not that technical a person, it was easy to follow and to understand what you were explaining. So thanks a lot for making it this, well, easy to follow a very, very complex concept, and for talking to us about something that, as you said, is something that deals with one of the major questions of the energy transition, which is how do we deal with the variable quality of renewables, and how do we create a system that is less vulnerable to that. I nevertheless have maybe as a starting point for our discussion, and actually speaking of our discussion, I would again like to ask all of you to think about the questions that you would like to ask Stefan, to either post them in the chat or to just use under the reaction symbol, the little hand symbol, to show us that you want to ask something. And then I'll happily call on you. And I see the first hand, but nevertheless, I think I'm going to take the opportunity to just ask the very first question, and hope that a couple more hands go up. I want to ask something less technical. I want to know if during the development phase of SoLAR, what would you say were particularly like rewarding success experiences, and maybe also did you have any failures or obstacles to overcome that you learn something from, that others can learn something from, that you like have created recommendations for our audience today from?
Yeah, I think if you listen to the coordinators of other projects, it's more or less the same, I guess. What was really good is that really our theory worked out to be true. So at least in the virtual demonstrator, we had just had the idea in the head and said, must work. We could really show that everything that we planned worked. Of course, we had to do some improvements and draw some screws here and there so that everything fits. But at the end, we really saw this system is stable and really it fulfills the needs. But then bringing it into reality, of course, we have two kinds of obstacles. One are technical again. This is the typical thing that a Modbus connection doesn't really work and only every fifth signal is getting somewhere. And we have to see how to fix that, or there were misunderstandings that at the end, when the heat pumps were there was no connection for communication with them, that as we ordered before, and we had to do it ourselves. Things like that, technical, but that can be solved. It's just slowing down things. The same, of course, with Corona and other things. So the whole project was delayed 1-2 years. First building the buildings 1 year, and then we also had problems with the smart meter gateways, by the way, which still not really work as they should. And this is just the official technology that should work, on which we rely. And we had to do some workarounds to make that work. But at the end, we always see when we get to the next device and looking at how it works, we see that it's more or less the same as we have simulated before. And if we finally get to control it, it also does what was in the simulation. So that was very fine. And the other thing, of course, is the regulation. It is quite hard what we are doing here, because it's a mix of private self-consumption and the private houses are selling their PV electricity to the contractor, so that others can get it from the utility, and then it gets in the grid. And just because we have CHP and PV together in this grid, we have to make a measurement of every house in detail with the load profiles, and this has to be paid, and this is very expensive, and we're just striving with the DSO to make that simpler at the moment. So these are the problems. But what really worked out is the idea worked out, and also the people really like the idea. They don't like that there are some delays now at the moment and ask how do you get forward and things like that. But they are really eager to work with us and change the time settings of the dishwashers and things like that. There was a lot of interest there.
That's great to hear. And that's, yeah, I can definitely imagine that if you, because you always, as a person that is merely a participant on a household level in the electricity market, you always feel like there's not really like that much I can do, or at least I don't really see an effect of what I do if I, for example, change my consumption patterns. But to actually see an effect and see that it's working, I can really see that probably people like bitten by the bug a bit more and want to continue working on it further. I want to take the first question from our audience. I see the hand of Niels Müller. Niels, can you maybe unmute yourself and also show yourself great? Say 1 or 2 words on who you are, and then ask the question that you want to ask Stefan.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Niels Müller. I'm working for the German TSO Amprion. Thanks a lot for this presentation. I think it's a very interesting topic and interesting to see your insights. I'm mainly interested. I see that for the setting that you have, you need a lot of smart infrastructure in this small scale. And I'm wondering how optimistic you are if you look in the big scale for countries in Europe or for the whole European system. how optimistic are you that this kind of setting will have a significant contribution for the system in the next, let's say, 10 years or 20 years in 2030? How optimistic are you that this will help us to have a more adequate system?
Yeah. So let's say if the TSOs would agree with that, this was a very good approach. What we could really simplify it by number of 10 or 100, because what we want to do is the reaction algorithms, they should go directly into the devices. So as I said, BSH and Miele, they are quite interested in what we are doing, because before you can't schedule normally your washing machine for the next day. It's quite hard. There are systems that try that, but normally they make just self optimization in the house. But really doing that on the market is hard. But with our system, you can get all these devices into flexibility, and they are quite interested. And what we can do is that the reaction on the price signal is just a piece of software within the devices. So that is very cheap. And the other hand is you have to do the price signal. You have to make it. And if we rely on the frequency, that would also be very easy. You could just make a frequency receiver in the device and it's done. For all the other things, we need some communication. But what we don't need at the end is to make to have a bidirectional communication, that every device has to say what it plans and doing things like this. We just need a price signal sent to each device, and this could be done, for example, with a smart meter, and we could even do it over the power line. So this would just be 1 byte per second that we have to send, and so you could just plug in the plug of your dishwashers and send 1 byte per second there. This is the price signal, and that's it. And then the rest you have to do is to get the price signal to the smart meter. Most of it can be measured on its own, that it looks at the voltage, for example, or the frequency, or you can send every second a price signal there from the DSO or the TSO. And also this can be made simpler and more resilient and cyber attackable, but it can be very, very simple, because we don't need this, everybody's talking to everybody and making schedules and giving data and optimizing. That's not necessary anymore.
Does this answer your question, Niels?
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stefan. I see much more activity now. And as I wrote in the chat, I encourage everyone to actually show your face on camera, so it feels like we're all talking to each other. The second voice that wants to say something is Jirapa Kamsamrong. Hi, thanks a lot for joining. Can you also say who you are and share your question?
Hi, my name is Jirapa. I'm a project coordinator of the Reduce Path 3.0 that we have just started this year. And I can see the relationship between these two projects that we can collaborate later on. I have two questions, because first you mentioned that there's some technical or some challenge of the smart meter gateway during your implementation or your pilot project. Maybe you can share with us, if you can, of course. If it's not credential information.
It's typical.
Okay.
you probably know it.
Okay. And the second question is that you mentioned that you simulate some kind of dynamic pricing scheme. I would like to know, have you collect some kind of the consumer experience based on that, how they react to those dynamic pricing scheme? For example, they have so many, for example, like critical pricing scheme or some kind of the rebate or maybe real-time pricing. So I would like to learn more how consumer react to that. Do they have some kind of opt-in, opt-out feeling, or some kind of the next factor that is force them too much and they don't want to participate anymore? So that is some kind of another aspect of the consumer behavior, how they want to participate in this kind of the market in the future. So I think that would be very helpful for us as well to consider in the project.
Yeah. So I learned that you work about the Redispatch 3.0. Could you also tell me for which company you're working for, which institute?
Yeah, Office Institute. Yeah, from Oldenburg.
Office Oldenburg?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, the smart meter gateway. That's the typical thing that normally you use LTE or other telecommunication issues to let them cooperate for the communication. And if you have the smart meter gateway in the basement, you have a problem. We have an intranet for our system from SoLAR, but as everything is standardized, they refuse to get contacted with that internet. We could just plug it in, but in the standard, it was not done that way. So we can do that, but it has not been done. And also the thing in Germany is that, you know, that the smart meter gateways must be according to the BSI standards, and there are very low amount that really is to that standard, and the manufacturer that we have doesn't have its own gateway that is released, and so he had to take another one, and there this problems came up because they didn't really work with each other. That was one thing. So we're still waiting for some data there, and so still people had to read at their smart meter what their consumption was. And the other thing is that originally with the manufacturer, we're working together there. The meters were ready, and also the gateways that they normally have to talk to us every second. That's what we needed, or at least every 10th second. Now with the BSI conform smart meter gateways, we just get the data every 50 minutes, and we can't. Then everything is over. We can't correct, or we can't control anything. Just getting prices every 50 minutes. By the way, that's the reason why DSOs and TSOs are very careful about those dynamic prices, because 50 minutes is not dynamic. If the price changes and keeps 50 minutes the same without knowing what everybody's doing, the system will break down if everything is automated. So that's the typical problems that we have there with the smart meter gateways. And then you talked about the pricing schemes for the people at the households. So our project is very small. What we just can do is the technical thing. We planned a more powerful project with some more money where we also could look at this. So I don't exactly know, and we didn't make a lot of interviews there. But what I can say is the idea that we have with our system is that you buy, you as a consumer or a prosumer, you buy your electricity from a utility, and maybe it also the utility buys also your energy, so that you go by two directions, or you can also sell it to somebody else and get something there. But normally you just have one partner and you have one tariff. And our idea is that this tariff has a basic price, as I said when I explaining how the price comes. So you have a basic price that you know normally what the electricity or at the end of the year for a normal prosumer would cost. And then you have this dynamic component of the tariff that we are doing, where at the end of the year for all the prosumers from a utility, you are at zero, but some are better and some are worse. And then you're trying to get better. You try to change your washing machine and your dishwasher so that they really work at low prices. And this is a little bit of also interesting for the people to do that. And if they really can see then, okay, my bill is 2 cents less per kilowatt hour at the end of the year if I move all my dishwashers and something in that direction. And this is the result of the system.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that you can explore on that aspect later on. I think it would be very interesting, how to apply into the consumer experience and to adapt and improve it furthermore. So thank you.
But
so much.
As we said, and also you said, we are very interested to get in contact with other research projects and report about our findings and maybe support. So
yeah. I really believe that technical investigations should, at least in place, and then later on we can explore another aspects. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks a lot for that question. And good to see that connections are being made already. Are there other questions from the audience? Someone who wants to ask something? If not directly, I would go to the question that we had in the chat, which has also been answered partly already in quite a funny way. Thanks for that, Thomas Walter. Okay, I don't see a hand so far. So Philip Huber is asking, you're talking about a very small scale at the moment. And if you want to scale that up and make every device compatible with the system that you have, doesn't that take decades? And it's actually quite similar to a question that I had written down as a possible question to ask, which would be, if you could devise your own scenario for Europe's energy future, which would be based on your approach, I assume, what would need to happen in the next like 5, 6, 7, 10 years on the ground across Europe?
Yeah. So a good relation is there's just been the report from the BEE, from Bund der Erneuerbaren Energien in Germany. They have made a report on how the future market could look like in a renewable world. And of course, they're really future-based and ahead, and of course, they want to promote the renewable energies. But what you could see there is that they rely to a big amount on storages that are conventional in our way, where they say we need 30% of the energy that is used has to be stored in batteries. And you could see in my first picture what big amount that is, and you have to build all that batteries and get it somewhere and get energy to build it and get energy to deal with the losses. And the same with the hydrogen storages. So batteries and hydrogen storage will make up the most of the storage capacity that we need. And what we are saying at Easy Smart Grid is, it would be much faster and much cheaper not to build up 3 times as much renewables to make batteries and to make a lot of hydrogen, but just make a third of the renewables that we do, and making a standard and making flexibility available, because this is what has to change. The flexibility is not in the renewables anymore. When the wind is there, you want to harvest it. The flexibility has to get into the consumers. Or you have a very expensive and high costly and takes the time system of large storages. So these are the two words where people say, we want to make storages, and you can ask them, will you do that in fast enough? And do you have money enough for that? And we say we have much cheaper and simpler system where you could ask the same question, but we say that would be much faster and simpler. That's our opinion, of course, but we are convinced.
I see a hand up that I assume is a direct reaction to this. So I would go to you directly, Thomas Walter, please.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to contribute to the, maybe I should give my name. I'm Managing Director and Founder of Easy Smart Grid, and I know the project well. But maybe on the question of the decades it will take, well, my answer was a bit funny. I've been through the internet transformation in my business life, and when it started, it seemed undoable, and all the old industry communication companies like Siemens and Alcatel were trying to fight the internet because it killed their business model. And today, neither of the two companies is active in telecommunications any longer. So yes, but we have a valid regulation in Europe to introduce dynamic tariffs. And we, as a consequence to also this price by you, we've been invited to discuss with ASA and the Florence School of Regulation how the regulation could actually be changed to allow and enable demand-side flexibility, because it is considered to be the key blocking factor of the transformation, and to add to make ourselves independent from Russian gas is to leverage the potential that Stefan has described. So yes, it's tough, but if we don't get it right, we're all going to have a serious problem, because dynamic tariffs are the key to leveraging it. It needs changing structures, it needs changes behavior, but as Stefan showed, I think it is not too difficult to do. And it's not too difficult even for lay people, as you mentioned yourself, qualified yourself, Stephanie, to get a feeling for how it could work. And so I'm very optimistic, and there are countries which are more ambitious in introducing dynamic tariffs. Germany is a bit behind, I would say, if you look at the European background, but we are optimistic that partners will jump in.
Thanks a lot for this addition, Thomas. Are there any other questions from the audience at this point? Okay, it doesn't look like it. It looks like you explained it really well, Stefan. Then we would actually like to switch the conversation around a bit, and we hope that you bear with us and maybe you give us some answers. Well, I think it would be really interesting to hear from a couple of people in the room. If you heard this concept for the first time, what your first impression was, or if you know it a bit already, whether you've thought through how this approach could revolutionize or fit into the world that we currently have, and what kind of paradigm shift we maybe need to make it fit, and whether what your or your organization's interest would be in engaging in this. So have a little bit of a think exercise of how this could go forward and what would be needed. Stefan, do you want to add anything to this question
that's
to everyone?
Really good wrap up. So a lot of questions in that, but I would be really eager to hear some answers on that. Some comments, remarks from your side, from the audience.
Maybe the TSO and DSO people in the room could have a reaction to this. Like everyone's hiding behind their turned off cameras. We'll give you a couple seconds to
be critical, say it's bullshit, but come out.
And just feel free to turn on your camera and your microphone and start talking. It looks like there's hesitation.
Yeah, and we are losing participants.
Any more prompts that you can give them, Stefan? Anything more specific that you'd like to have a reaction on?
Is there still somebody here from a TSO?
Yes, there are TSO representatives in the room. There are a couple of names that
I can't see. Maybe I have to look there.
Yeah,
so if just somebody from a TSO could give a comment, that would be nice. Not Thomas.
Well, I could just give you the information that in a personal exchange, a representative of a German TSO said, Thomas or Easy Smart Grid, if we implemented this would lead to a self-stabilizing energy system. So maybe you want to counter talk, or you may wish to support this.
If nobody answers, I can ask the question, why does nobody answer? Is it hard to find an attitude, or is there still lack of understanding, or please give an opinion.
Okay, there's someone.
Damian is
sounds like someone coming in. Yes, so Damian Medimoric works for the Croatian TSO, HOPS. But it seems like he might have some issues connecting to the audio, which is a pity. Damian, if it's not working, we'd also appreciate a comment in the chat. Of course, it's nicer to have it in conversation. He's trying to come in again. We're giving him.
They're working on the audio signal.
Yes, yes. We're giving him a couple seconds more. It looks like it's difficult, but maybe we have someone else. Sven Schilak, did you want to say something?
Hello at all. My name is Sven Schilak from the TSO 50 Hertz. Personally, I think the approach is good, and I would discuss this with my project colleagues. We have also any flexibility and EV projects, and maybe we have a chance to come together. And I think we should talk bilateral over this topic and the project's approaches. Thank you.
That was positive. Thank you. My day is saved.
Very good. It seems like the main goal that we have with this kind of event is to connect people to talk further about these topics. Is working well. Good. Damian, do we want to try to connect to the audio again, or do you want to leave a comment in the chat?
Hello. In fact, I have a problem still with camera, but the main problem is that I was not able to follow the most of the. So I was unfortunately switching off and on. So I wouldn't be really the much helpful for this dilemma that I was hearing in the last few minutes. But I hope I will be able to catch up.
Yeah, the good thing is that it's on tape now, and Stefan, you will also send around the PDF.
Exactly.
So we are ready for later discussions. Under 4 eyes, or we say. How do you say that in English?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Between us or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not coming to me right now. Bilaterally, it's not quite as casual as you were trying to express it. Yeah, but okay, good. It seems like most people in the room seem to be satisfied with what we've discussed so far, and there are not many more open questions. But as Stefan said, there is the standing offer to get in touch with him personally. Stefan, if you want to, we can also put your email address on the event page for this webinar. Mm-hmm. We'll put the presentation there. We'll put the recording there, so you can review it again. You can download the presentation. You can share it with your colleagues who you think might be interested in this, and you can contact Stefan directly to follow up on conversations bilaterally. And even though we didn't have a very long discussion right now, it seems like people are really intrigued by the concept and want to know more. Stefan, thanks a lot for this incredibly interesting presentation and for taking the time to talk to us today. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with? Anything that you haven't had the chance to say yet?
No, I'm just really thankful that you're doing all this, that I appreciate the award and the support that you gave, and also to the participants that are here today. And I'm looking forward to talks and to go on.
Great, thanks a lot. We also very much appreciate that you were here. And I can also say that as Stefan said, they won the Good Practice of the Year award for technology last year. And I think it's the practice in, I think, 8 years that we've done the award now that had the jury most enthusiastic out of every winner so far. So it seems like you're onto something. Thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot for everyone who joined, and you'll hear and see more on this on our website very soon. And Stefan's ready to talk to you more. Thanks a lot, and have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.